Really quick before this video gets started off, I did actually want to say one other thing. This was my own experience of making this program, and I wanted to share it with others as something interesting. This is not a tutorial, but my own personal experiment of an idea that I had. For context, the only thing that I end up having expertise-wise when it comes to Python is just a one-semester beginner class. Beyond that, I have no experience in Python, so everything that you see going on in the background as B-roll is me actually doing it, and I am doing all of the research and all of the fine-tuning myself. It may not look like it in parts because I tried to edit it down as short as possible so that you didn't have to see multiple hours. And if you look at the bottom right hand corner of the date and time, it will go on for multiple days. So it is me, and it was a lot of struggle in parts. But ultimately the goal was to make a file deduplication program because I had never built one before and I wanted to try something that challenged me that I was uncomfortable with, and like I said, have never previously done or even knew where to begin. But other than that, I have no experience in Python, so please don't take the very stitched B-roll to be me being a genius and being able to get through this seamlessly in 12 minutes. I would like to talk about how I see AI being progressively more and more and more ingrained in every possible aspect of our lives. The title of this video is Coding Without AI, just to make it more simplistic and confine the title to something that I could do a short video about. So, my main scope in this video is just trying to non-scientifically but just observationally have a conversation about how I have definitely noticed over the past at least 5 or 6 years how much everyday life and just how much cognitive load for a human being has been offloaded to generative AI. And I'd like to really start with the idea that offloading mental load to something else doesn't really make all that much sense to me and never really has, even long before the idea of language models came about. In early days of school, I remember there were, and probably there's a demographic that will watch this video and will relate, when you could end up getting services for high school or even early college where they would end up writing your essay of a certain page length on a certain subject, and they would ask for some reasonable amount that wouldn't break a student for money there. But even then, I didn't really ever get the point, because if I'm going to school to learn something, then and I'm paying to be there, or somebody else is paying for me to be there, ultimately I feel kind of the moral obligation, I guess, to do the very best that I can, but also to learn as much as I can, because otherwise I'm wasting everybody's time and money. But when language models came around and you could quite literally ask any type, and as you know, quite literally could ask any question that you'd want and get an intelligible answer, whether or not it's anything that's useful is up to the algorithm that you're using, and the data that it ingested. But what I have greatly seen over the course of at least, like I said, 5 or 6 years has been really depressing, because over the past couple months for sure I've seen the worst of it. Namely, I've seen more and more and more in daily conversation, not even professional conversation, just daily conversation. I'll end up having somebody throw in there that, I don't know the answer to that question, you should ask AI about it. Or if I call somebody to ask for a suggestion or an example, an extension of trust, and I need to ask a question because they have expertise, and what I end up getting back is, I don't know, you should just ask AI. It's really disheartening, when ultimately what I wanted to foster by the point of the phone call or an in-person conversation or video conversation was ultimately to foster a better friendship or relationship there, not to be directed to an inhuman thing. And that's been really weird, and it's almost felt, when I end up hearing that, it feels to a degree as though they had said a cuss word, where it just seems wrong when somebody says you should ask AI instead of them giving an actual answer. Because I remember it wasn't a decade ago, and I'm not that old, but it wasn't a decade ago that I remember if somebody didn't have an answer to the question, they would either go off of the knowledge that they did have and say, but that's what I know, I don't know much anything else. And that was it. But there wasn't the denial of the conversation because they didn't have the answer and they just pointed me to something else. And then the other thing that really started to get to me was, beyond the conversational thing, I saw the inherent lack of people's ability to be able to do things on their own. One instance of that I can remember, I was assisting somebody with a computer problem, and at the time, they were saying that ChatGPT servers were down, or some servers were down that their AI model was running on, and they couldn't do any work. And what I thought was really funny about that, and always funny about the servers are down, this isn't going to work, is it wasn't up until, a few years ago that this technology didn't even exist to the degree that it does now, where it can replace huge amounts, swaths of time with a few keystrokes and a prompt, and then it's done. And yet, all of a sudden, you can't do any work. So I asked what the work was, and it was the typical, well, I got to work on emails, got to work on writing up papers, that kind of thing. But my question was formulated to myself and directed to myself quietly because I didn't want to be rude, but it kind of seemed really stupid to say that I can't do work because something else needs to do the work for me. Maybe it was how I was receiving the answer, but that's effectively what I got, was I can't do my job because something else has to do it for me, and I can't do that. But they absolutely could have done the work, was my point in bringing that up. And then another thing that I can think of in that same scope of that kind of thing where they can't do the work is that it's really weird when somebody tells you that they know how something works, or excuse me, they know that something works, but they don't know why it works. In a lot more than just writing emails or doing basic stuff like that. And when somebody says that they have a solution to, say, for example, this program that I'm working on in the background, when I go to any place nowadays, such as like Reddit or other online forums like that, Reddit is a very bad example as a good place to go get information like that, but those types of places, I see a lot of answers that end up saying, this is what AI spit out, hopefully this works for you. Versus when I go to those same forums, such as Linux forums and whatnot for Linux diagnostic help and stuff, if I go back to, say, around 2015, 2020, something like that, or even before then, there's just people. A whole bunch of people who have heart and soul for being able to figure out your problems and wanting to assist you as best as they can. It wasn't AI, it was the problem that was being solved by people. The sense of community with a common problem of, yeah, I also have that problem and it seems exactly the same as you. What have you done to fix it? That AI, for better or for worse, has in many ways kind of killed. Because when I go to an online forum to go look for help regarding a computer problem, a technology problem, whatever problem that I'm trying to diagnose that I'm going to a web forum for, many of the most recent posts are, like I said, just, well, this is what AI spit out. It almost kind of loses the human aspect of it and makes it more and more kind of that dead internet of, yeah, it might be a person, Control V and then enter, but they didn't make it. They didn't come up with a solution themselves. The trial and error of trying to figure something out is one of the things that I personally end up striving to do because it shows me that there is a solution. It's a matter of figuring out how to get to that solution. Sometimes it takes a lot longer than you would have expected. In the background of this video, much of what I'm doing here, I didn't know how to do. I didn't know how to work with dictionaries in the way that I'm working with them here. I tried to use text files to do the exact same thing, and as anybody experienced would know, that is a horrendous way to do it and not going to be any great scaling method at all. In fact, you're going to run into more issues, which I did, with text files than you would with just using dictionaries. And when I was researching in order to try to make some of the functions or things for this video, it was very hard. Quite honestly, there were definitely parts where I wanted to use AI. It's really funny because when you don't have something to fall back on to be able to come to a solution on, how do you fix the problem? And again, the goal for this video was don't use AI because that is the video. It wasn't all that much of a temptation, to be quite honest, because if I'm making it this isn't an option, then that isn't an option. Your only option is either to quit or to keep trying. AI is pretty much the only way that you can keep up. And I think that that's a problem. If we're feeling as though that AI is the only way that we can keep up, and we're chronically overstressed, overworked, trying to be able to keep up, Because if just a decade ago we were still being able to do all of the same stuff that we do day in and day out, but now all of a sudden we can't for some reason, then I think AI is the problem. And I should also say, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer by any means. I understand that AI is going to be a thing of our lives for ever. That we're never going to be able to get rid of it. And I get that. But I do think that there's something to say about how we end up using AI really ends up needing to change. After doing this video and doing all of the research manually really made me think all of the stuff that I've learned in making this project, at being able to get to the finish line and actually see it does work. And for my little personal experiment, it does exactly what I wanted it to. And I'm really proud of being able to be uncomfortable. Praise the Lord for that one, because discomfort is one thing that I think we Americans really do like, if I'm being quite honest. And I'm completely and totally guilty for that as well. I like what's comfortable and what's known, and I don't like stepping out of my comfort zone. And to be quite honest, if I did ask AI to write this thing, I would probably have been done. I think I spent a total of 3 days on this. I would have been done in a few minutes. But I can also tell you, I honestly wouldn't know how the program worked, or how much I would have actually learned in the first place. I don't want to take a backseat to learning. I don't think that I should be, if I'm going to learn anything, I don't think that I should put my thinking onto something else. I don't like something else doing thinking for me, because I have to trust that it's doing the thinking right. And just like in the conversations, and just like with other people saying that they can't do their job when very clearly they can because they haven't had AI their entire job, it's a little worrying to end up seeing that so many people are becoming progressively more and more to the point that they can't function without it. Because for me personally, and this is my own personal experience, if I am forced to learn something that I don't understand, but I have to do it by a certain time, my option is to continue to try. And like I said in the video, AI wasn't an option, so it's either quit or keep trying. But it is a little worrying. I'd like to leave you all with a Bible verse that I think that really helps me a bit when I end up getting super concerned about the what ifs. Luke 12, verses 25 through 26. And this is Christ speaking. And which of you by worrying can add a single hour to his lifespan? If then you cannot do even a very little thing, why do you worry about other matters? Because ultimately we can be worried about AI. We can be worried about a lot of things. But by worrying, what do we ultimately achieve? That's a whole other video. But otherwise, I thank you for watching.